Hey guys, so today in this video, what I wanted to do is go over a sort of problem that I'm becoming more aware of, and that is the fact of Windows services and disabling them specifically, and deep loading scripts. So a lot of the time, people will run these deep loading scripts, and essentially, what will happen is that people will get in the mindset of, oh, if I disable as many services as I possibly can in the services tab or with these scripts, I essentially will get more performance. Now, in theory, this does make sense, right? Because you're thinking, oh, if this is running right now, it's taking up resources. My old system surely should be having issues. Well, what I've noticed is that even on my, we'll say, high end PC, I've noticed that my performance was slowly starting to get worse over time as I was starting to do more and more of this disabling services stuff. Well, I was getting confused because in the performance tab, I would see like 40, 50 processes at most at any one time, which is a pretty low amount considering that Windows by default starts with, I think, 150 when you first load it up. So, this was the main thing that I wanted to bring forward to you guys is because here's what's actually happening and the reason why you shouldn't be just running a deep loading script and then just looking at processes or looking at the services tab and thinking, "Oh, if I just disable one more service, that'll get me more performance." No. Because what's happening in the background is that Microsoft has a few checks. Like it's not just going to disabling a service is not like Microsoft or Windows is just going to stop remembering that service. Some of those services are functionally dependent on each other. And you can actually prove this by just literally going into services and then let's see, like, oh, I don't know. Let's try application identity. If I go to dependencies, this service depends on the following system components. So if I was to disable cryptographic services, this service wouldn't start, but Windows will still try to start it because it's part of the startup of the whole operating system. And so that's the main thing is that even if you are disabling it, you aren't actually disabling it, you're just preventing Windows from opening it. But Windows will still keep trying to open it, and that can cause performance issues because it's essentially restarting the application dozens and dozens of times. Now, how do I know this to be the case? I can't, like, you can say, for example, oh no, in the Windows processes tab, it says I only have 40 or 50. So that means that that's just the basic stuff because I can literally count 40 to 50 processes right here, right? You can kind of do your own math about it. Well, if you go into the event viewer, you'll notice that if you go down into the custom logs, event viewer essentially is a sort of note taker. It basically tracks everything that happens in the operating system. It will track services not running. It will track services that are running. It'll track you connecting to a device. It'll track just about everything that it possibly can. And that's the good thing about this. Well, if I go into administrative templates, this is what I was talking about when I said that performance was getting worse. Well, this was literally 2 days ago. And you'll notice that a connected device service depends on the network connection broker servers, which failed to start because of the following error: the device attached to the system is not functioning. Well, every second, literally every second, Microsoft was trying to restart dozens and dozens of services. Some of these were the same service, but some of them weren't. And so literally every single second in this event viewer is flooded with Windows trying to restart that service. And that was the reason why my performance was getting worse, is because when you run a debloating script, you have to make sure that this event viewer doesn't look like a tsunami of errors and warnings and critical failures. Because this is what I mean when I say that you're not getting more performance when you see lower processes if anything in this tab looks like it's acting up. Because again, guys, look at how many are happening in a single second. 5 to 10 pings, restarts happening every single second. And you can imagine this going absolutely horrifically on something like a quad core PC or like a 6 core PC where you already have a limited amount of cores. So having to run a game in the background while this is also happening, you would go backwards in performance gains. So that's the thing I wanted to bring up today. If you're going to run a debloating script, make sure that you check that the event viewer in the administrative events is not flooded with errors like this, because each time it'll ping it and it will cause your performance to dip. Now, if you're going to do a debloating script, the main way that you can actually prevent this from happening is if you go into the services tab. You can use the information that I told you just barely, like the dependencies. Now, the problem is that some of these dependencies are natively automatic and some of them are Microsoft Windows automatic. So what I mean by that is when one of these services runs, it's natural for it to try to start the other 3 or 4 dependencies that it's related to. So when cryptographic services starts, it probably is trying to ping application identity to start that application, or vice versa. Well, Windows will automatically try to start services that you disable yourself. And so, what I mean by that is if you try to go down to, for example, the Windows Update service, you'll notice this a ton. If you tried to disable this service while it's running, you'll notice that it almost always will find a way to turn itself back on, even when you run really advanced stuff that you've seen on YouTube. It will just find a way to turn itself back on. So that's what I mean, guys, when there are some services that will just never stop trying to turn themselves on. There are a few that I can list just right off the bat. Windows Defender Firewall will always try to start, no matter if you disable every single dependency, no matter if you disable every single service related to it, it will always try to start. Windows Update Medic Service is another one. Another classic one is the where is it? It's the network store interface service. A lot of these services will just keep restarting, regardless of whatever deep loading script or whatever new registry tweak you try to do. So that's the main thing, guys, is make sure that you're checking that, so that way you can actually ensure that you're not going backwards in performance and that you're actually getting an actual uplift because you're reducing the active amount of processes running in the background and the active amount of activity in the background, not just processes that are idle running, processes that are actively running in the event viewer that you aren't seeing. So yeah, guys, I figured that would be an educational video for you, and I hope that this helps you a lot. Let me know if this actually helps you at all in terms of if you see a bunch of these errors and you suddenly fix them. Like, let's say you enable a bunch of these services and then they start fixing themselves again. Let me know if this works for you and if you notice your performance improving or vice versa. Anyway, guys, I'm heading out. My name's Savaterix. Have a good one.